Hi, I'm Justin Allen. I'm going to talk a little bit today about my influences and how they have impacted my current work. I guess it's most important to start out as a child. I spent a lot of time outside, and I was an only child, which means that there was lots of time to play outside and explore. I lived 3 miles from any sort of civilization, and I was surrounded by cornfields on all time. And being alone kind of gave me a bizarre imagination. Uh, when I played, I made time capsules and I dug a pond for my beta fish. That never came to be. I also fought imaginary villains and made regular trips to the creek down the hill from my house. This is kind of how I came to photography. I was bored a lot. I never really had video games, which I'm really thankful for. I went outside and I started just taking pictures of really simple, beautiful things, usually mundane. There was nothing but mundane for miles and miles around. I remember taking pictures of a flooded creek in the spring one time because I loved getting outside. I had spring fever. And I took pictures of my tire swing, and I took pictures of an old tractor that was on our property. And it's just stuff like that that I was trying to transform into something greater than it really was. I think being outside and an only child kind of made me narrow in on those little things. Later I became interested in how people behaved. I found their facial expressions showed a lot, and I think the first picture I ever took of a person with intention was this picture, the guy with the pink bag. And I just saw this man with a pink bag come out of the alley with a beer in one hand. I think there was music in downtown Clear Lake that day, and he just looked so awkward walking around the alley. He kind of looked like a badass with his beer and his glasses, but then he had that pink bag, and it really, I don't know, I just really identified with him. And it was at that moment I realized that photographs can tell stories or deliver complex ideas. Even if they're taken out of context, they can be repurposed, recontextualized. I realized that this man was trying to be masculine, but he was lugging around something that just ruined it all, and I identified with that. And I started making more examples of this. One is the boys with the bag. There was something with that photo that kind of the decisive moment. And then the carnival worker, you could just tell that there was something about his demeanor that you could tell through his facial expressions. And of course the interesting cow photo. I just thought all these told stories that were, you could maybe even contrive to be greater stories than they actually were in the first place. And then much later I learned about Alfred Stieglitz's Equivalence, and he used to photograph clouds to convey emotions that he felt. And so I started taking pictures of equivalents in college, but I just thought they were kind of mundane, or I don't know, and I think I was still developing my craft, and I just thought they were boring. And then I found some of Jason Fulford's work, and I found out that mundane and subtle subject matter can actually be really great. Here's a few of his pieces. And they all have that quality of just being subtle. And this made me feel more comfortable with photographing, like what I wanted. When I see something that I wanted to photograph, I'd just do it. I wouldn't think about it, I'd just do it. And this has kind of shaped a lot of my my art craft. Jason Fulford also got me interested in how the form relates to one another. Like, two photos that would otherwise never relate in any logical way can relate through visual form. In my book Farther, which is a book I recently made, I document a trip down the Big Sioux River. But I really didn't want to just take pictures and document the trip like anyone could with a point-and-shoot camera. I instead took pictures that kind of fed off of each other. And they all relate in some ideological way, either form or use. And one of the best, I think, in the book is the first photograph I found on the way to the river. It's a picture of this wonderful triangular object. I don't know what it is, but I really just enjoyed it, and I just took it. I didn't really have this idea in my head yet, but I just took the photograph, and then the same day I saw this soccer goal, and I just saw the same exact form within that, and I really enjoyed it. And soon after that, we got to the campsite, and I saw this VW bus with the pop-up camper, and all those had that really prominent triangle shape, and it started like coming into my brain that I should just keep this going the whole time. And after that, I found a tent that had the same exact yellow as the bus, and it just kept on feeding off of that. So the whole trip, it was a week trip. I just tried to look for the next puzzle piece. I'd think about it all day while we were in the canoe, and then I'd have like the perfect golden hour of sunset to find that next piece of the puzzle. And it was one of the most zen photography things I've ever done. I never thought I explained it as zen, but that's what it was. And I love the idea of having the viewer think about the relationships between things, and I feel like this is kind of goes back to in high school when I started listening to Pink Floyd. I just love Pink Floyd because there's so much thought that you had to put into it, into the lyrics and into the and you had to listen to the whole song to be able to, or the whole album to be able to listen to figure out exactly where they were coming from and what ideas they were trying to convey. And I really enjoyed that. It's kind of like a murder mystery you had to put together. And so then the idea of equivalence and the idea of the relation of similar forms kind of came together in my most recent photo book, Hair Trigger. Now, although Hair Trigger is about a certain struggle that I had in my own life, I feel like the way a photograph works, it can kind of apply to everyone. And so Hair Trigger is basically a book full of equivalents that I found in my own life. And none of them are of clouds, but they do have like certain qualities that give you an emotion. And my struggle was really just a starting point to start shooting. I knew if I chose just something in my own life, I would see it like things that reminded me of that, and it would make me shoot pictures that I normally wouldn't shoot. And so a lot of it is bizarre subject matter, and none of it really relates on any like physical level, but on the emotional level they're very related. And I also add a little bit of humor. I think I finally found my sense of humor when it comes to photography, something that I was lacking before. Just that subtle humor that keeps the viewer interested. I feel like when you go through these progression of photos, you do get a certain feeling for what's being conveyed, even if it's on a subconscious level. You know it's there, but you can't just quite put your finger on it, and I'm okay with that. I like that. There are also many other relatable forms, such as the satellite dish and the lion. The lion is an equivalence to like a defense mechanism. It's defending pride. Whenever I see a lion in front of a building or something, I kind of feel like the person is just hiding something, because it's stating like, I am proud and I'm here to protect this. And then I chose to use the book format because you can control the progression of photos so much better. in a gallery setting, you can still, put the photos in a certain order, but people still tend to kind of look, from here to here to here to here. They very rarely, follow that progression, or they don't have to. And I really want to like constrain that, because that's part of the storytelling, is giving the facts in the the right order as to build suspense. And I intend to continue to work in book form. It's kind of my obsession. I really love making a book and flipping through it and getting it in the mail and smelling it even. And I can't wait to see what comes next and the constant evolution of my photography. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I hope it keeps going.